The orchestra finished its last note just as Zachary Wellington's champagne flute slipped from her fingers and shattered across the marble floor, drawing every eye in the reception hall toward her, including a pair of storm gray ones she had not seen in 12 years. Lucas Zimmerman stood frozen near the bar, his tailored black suit doing nothing to hide the way his shoulders had broadened since college, and Zachary felt her breath catch somewhere between her lungs and her throat. She had known Marcus's wedding would be elegant, packed with successful people from both coasts, but nobody had warned her that Lucas would be here. Nobody had told her that the boy who had kissed her goodbye on graduation day and promised to write would be standing 30 feet away looking like every corporate magazine's cover model come to life. A server rushed over with a towel and dustpan, murmuring apologies as if the dropped glass had been his fault, but Zachary barely heard him. She was too busy watching Lucas navigate through the crowd toward her, moving with the kind of confidence that came from years of making boardroom decisions and closing million-dollar deals. Her best friend Emma appeared at her elbow, following her gaze. "Is that Lucas Zimmerman?" Emma whispered, her eyes widening. "The Lucas Zimmerman from Zimmerman Industries. Zachary, why did you not tell me you knew him?" "I did not know he would be here," Zachary managed, finally tearing her eyes away to look at Emma. "Marcus never mentioned it. Marcus probably assumed you knew." "They were roommates junior year, remember?" Emma grabbed her arm. "Do you have any idea how successful he is? His company revolutionized sustainable packaging. He was on the Forbes 30 under 30 list 3 years ago. Zachary, he is a CEO worth hundreds of millions." Zachary had known Lucas would do well. Even back in college, he had possessed that rare combination of intelligence, drive, and genuine care for making the world better. But she had stopped following his career after the first year of silence, when her emails went unanswered and her calls were never returned. She had convinced herself that their connection had been nothing more than a college romance, intense and meaningful in the moment, but ultimately destined to fade. Except now he was 10 feet away, and the way he was looking at her made her feel like she was 22 again, wearing her graduation gown and trying not to cry as he promised they would make long-distance work. Zachary. Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer and a question all at once. Up close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the slight silver threading through his dark hair at the temples. He had aged beautifully, grown into the promise of the handsome boy she had loved. "I had no idea you would be here." "Emma dragged me," she said, aiming for lightness and missing by a mile. Her voice came out breathless. "You know how she is about weddings, cannot resist an open bar and a dance floor." Emma, bless her, took the hint and melted away into the crowd with a meaningful look that promised a lengthy interrogation later. Zachary and Lucas stood there among the swirl of celebration, an island of complicated history in a sea of joy. "You look incredible," Lucas said, and she saw him swallow hard. "I mean, you always did, but now. Thank you." Zachary smoothed down the emerald silk of her bridesmaid dress, needing something to do with her hands. "You look good too, very CEO." He laughed, a real laugh that crinkled his eyes and reminded her viscerally of late nights in the library, stealing kisses between study sessions. "Emma told you. She looked you up on her phone approximately 3 seconds after spotting you." Zachary found herself smiling despite the confusion roiling in her chest. "Apparently you are very impressive these days." "I did okay." He shifted his weight, suddenly looking less like a confident executive and more like the boy who had nervously asked her to coffee after their environmental science midterm. "Zachary, I owe you an explanation about what happened after graduation." It was 12 years ago, she said, even though the wounds felt suddenly fresh. We were kids. Long distance is hard. You do not need to explain anything. Yes, I do. He glanced around the reception hall, where couples were beginning to filter onto the dance floor as the band started a slow song. Can we talk somewhere quieter, please? Zachary knew she should say no. She had spent years getting over Lucas Zimmerman, building a successful career as a marine biologist, creating a life she was proud of in San Diego. She had convinced herself that first love was called first love for a reason, something precious, but ultimately left in the past. But standing here now, looking into those gray eyes that had once known all her secrets, she found herself nodding. He led her through a side door onto a terrace overlooking the vineyard where Marcus and Jennifer had exchanged their vows that afternoon. The California sunset painted everything in shades of gold and rose, and the air smelled like jasmine and possibility. Zachary wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the warm evening. My father had a stroke 2 weeks after graduation, Lucas said quietly, staring out at the vines. Massive. The doctors said he would never work again, might never walk again. My mother called me while I was packing for my new job in Seattle, and everything changed in an instant. Zachary felt her anger deflate like a punctured balloon. Lucas, I am so sorry, I had no idea. Nobody did. He made me promise not to tell anyone. He was proud, did not want people knowing he was weak. Lucas's jaw tightened. I moved back home that week, took over the family business, which was failing even before the stroke. We made industrial packaging, the least sustainable option you can imagine, and I had just spent 4 years studying environmental science. The irony was not lost on me. Why did you not tell me? The question came out softer than she had intended. I would have understood. I would have helped. I know. He finally turned to look at her, and she saw real pain in his eyes. That was exactly why I could not tell you. You had just gotten accepted to that amazing graduate program at Scripps. You were so excited about your research opportunity studying coral reefs. I could not ask you to give that up for me. You could have let me make that choice. You would have chosen me. He said it with such certainty that Zachary could not argue. You would have turned down your dream to help me salvage a dying company in a town you never wanted to live in. And I loved you too much to let you do that. Zachary felt tears prick her eyes. So you just disappeared. No explanation, no goodbye. Do you have any idea how much that hurt? Every day. His voice cracked. Every single day for 12 years, Zachary. I thought about calling you, emailing you, showing up at your lab. But then time passed, and you were probably happy, probably moved on, and I had no right to drag you back into my mess. Your mess, she laughed, but it came out bitter. Lucas, you built an empire. Emma showed me the articles. You turned your father's failing company into a leader in sustainable packaging. You have contracts with half the major corporations in America. That does not sound like a mess. The business is not the mess. The business is actually the one thing I got right. He took a step closer, and Zachary's heart hammered against her ribs. The mess is that I have spent 12 years comparing every woman I met to you and finding them all lacking. The mess is that I still remember exactly how you take your coffee, and what you look like when you first wake up, and the sound you make when you laugh at something genuinely funny versus when you are just being polite. The mess, Zachary, is that I never stopped loving you, and seeing you tonight made me realize I probably never will. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Zachary grabbed the terrace railing for support, her mind reeling. You cannot just say something like that. Why not? It is true. Lucas ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. Look, I know I have no right to ask for anything from you. I know I hurt you, and I know 12 years is a long time. But standing here with you now, I cannot pretend I do not feel exactly the same way I did the last time I kissed you. Lucas. His name came out as barely more than a whisper. I am not asking for anything, he said quickly. I just needed you to know. Needed you to understand why I disappeared, even if you cannot forgive me for it. Zachary stared at him, this man who had been her first love, her first heartbreak, her first everything. She had spent so many years angry at him, then trying to forget him, then occasionally wondering what might have been. She had built walls around the parts of her heart that had belonged to him, convinced herself that she had moved on completely. But now, with the vineyard spread out before them and the sound of celebration floating through the door behind them, she realized those walls were made of paper. I need time to process this, she finally said. This is a lot, Lucas. You cannot just reappear after 12 years and expect me to have all the answers right now. I know, he nodded, and she saw hope and fear warring in his expression. How long are you in town? I fly back to San Diego on Sunday. It was Thursday evening now. Can I see you tomorrow? Just to talk, nothing more. We could get coffee, catch up on the last 12 years like normal people. Normal people. As if anything about this situation was normal. But Zachary found herself nodding anyway because despite everything, she wanted to know more. Wanted to understand how the boy she had loved had become this man, wanted to fill in all the blank spaces of the years they had spent apart. There is a coffee shop on Main Street, she said. The Grind House. 10 in the morning. I will be there. Lucas smiled, and it transformed his whole face. Thank you, Zachary, for listening, for not throwing your drink in my face, for everything. The night is still young, she said dryly, but she was smiling too. They went back inside together, and Zachary immediately found herself surrounded by Emma and the other bridesmaids, all of whom had apparently witnessed their exit and were dying for details. She deflected as best she could, gave vague answers about old friends catching up, and tried to focus on celebrating Marcus and Jennifer. But throughout the rest of the reception, she was painfully aware of exactly where Lucas was at any given moment, as if they were two magnets unable to stop orienting toward each other. She caught him watching her during the bouquet toss, which she deliberately avoided catching. He was there when she struggled with the clasp on her necklace after dancing too energetically to a 90s throwback song, his fingers gentle on the back of her neck as he fixed it. They shared a laugh when Marcus's drunk uncle attempted the worm and had to be helped off the dance floor by 3 groomsmen. By the time Zachary collapsed into bed at the hotel at 2 in the morning, her feet aching and her mind spinning, she felt like she had lived an entire lifetime in a single evening. She stared at the ceiling, listening to Emma snore softly in the other bed, and wondered what on earth she was doing agreeing to meet Lucas tomorrow. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. Thank you again for tonight. I know this does not fix anything, but I am grateful for the chance to explain. Sleep well, Zachary. See you at 10. Lucas. She saved his number, her finger hovering over the reply button for a long moment before she finally typed back. Good night, Lucas. It felt like opening a door she had kept locked for more than a decade, and Zachary was not entirely sure what she would find on the other side. The Grind House was exactly the kind of aggressively quirky coffee shop that appeared in every small town trying to attract the weekend tourist crowd. Local art on the walls, mismatched furniture, a chalkboard menu featuring drinks with unnecessarily complicated names. Zachary arrived 10 minutes early, ordered a simple latte, and claimed a table in the corner where she could watch the door. Lucas walked in at precisely 10 o'clock, and Zachary felt that same jolt of awareness that had struck her at the wedding. He was dressed more casually today, dark jeans and a gray Henley that matched his eyes, but he still carried himself with that quiet confidence. He spotted her immediately, his face breaking into a smile that made her stomach flip. "You are early," he said, sliding into the chair across from her after ordering his own coffee. Occupational hazard. When you spend as much time on research boats as I do, you learn that being late means missing the dive window. Zachary wrapped her hands around her mug. "So, 12 years. Where do we even start? How about you tell me about your work?" Lucas leaned forward, genuine interest in his eyes. "I saw some of your published papers. The research on coral reef regeneration was fascinating." "You looked up my papers?" Zachary blinked in surprise. He had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I might have been keeping tabs on your career, just occasionally. Every few months I would search your name, read your latest publication, feel incredibly proud and incredibly guilty in equal measure. That is extremely creepy and also kind of sweet, and I cannot decide which reaction to have first." But she was smiling despite herself. "The coral work is what I am most excited about right now. We have been testing techniques to help damaged reefs recover faster, and the results have been promising. Climate change is devastating these ecosystems, but if we can accelerate the regeneration process, we might be able to save more of them." "That is incredible. You are literally saving the ocean. Small parts of it, anyway." "It feels like bailing water out of a sinking ship sometimes, but every reef we save matters." Zachary took a sip of her latte. "What about you? Emma said you revolutionized sustainable packaging, but I want to hear it from you." Lucas spent the next 20 minutes walking her through how he had transformed his father's company. He had started by convincing his father's old clients to try new biodegradable materials, undercut their prices at first to prove the concept, then slowly built a reputation as the place to go for environmentally responsible packaging solutions. It had been brutal, he admitted. 5 years of 18-hour days, countless rejections, moments where bankruptcy seemed inevitable. "But you made it work," Zachary said. "Eventually. My father recovered enough to see the company become successful again before he passed away 4 years ago. That meant everything to me." Lucas's expression grew distant. "He told me he was proud of me right near the end, said he was sorry for making me give up my own dreams to save his." "I am sorry you lost him. Thank you. He was a complicated man, but I loved him." Lucas refocused on her. "My mother is doing well, though. She moved to Arizona, plays golf every day, and video calls me weekly to ask when I am going to give her grandchildren." "Ah, the eternal parental question. Do your parents still do the same to you, constantly?" Zachary laughed. "My mother has started sending me screenshots of dating app profiles for men she thinks I would like. It is mortifying." "So there is nobody serious?" Lucas asked the question carefully, as if trying to sound casual and failing entirely. "There have been people," Zachary said honestly. "A relationship that lasted 2 years in my late 20s. A few shorter things that fizzled out, but nothing that stuck. What about you?" "Same. Dates. A couple of relationships that seemed promising until they were not. Nobody I could imagine building a life with." He held her gaze. "Nobody who was you, Lucas." Zachary felt her defenses crumbling. "You cannot keep saying things like that. I am trying to be rational about this." "Why do we need to be rational?" "Because you broke my heart." The words came out sharper than she had intended. "Because even if your reasons were noble, even if you thought you were protecting me, you still disappeared without an explanation. Do you know how long I waited for you to call? How many times I checked my email, convinced there must have been some mistake, some miscommunication? I am sorry." Lucas reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. "I cannot change what I did, but I am sorrier than you can possibly imagine." "I believe that you are sorry. I even understand why you made the choice you made, even though I hate that you made it for me instead of with me." Zachary looked down at their hands, separated by mere inches on the scarred wooden table. But understanding and forgiveness are not the same thing as being able to just pick up where we left off. "I am not asking to pick up where we left off," Lucas said quietly. "That would be impossible anyway. We are different people now, but I am asking for a chance to get to know who you have become and to let you know who I am now. Maybe we start fresh, see where it goes." Zachary wanted to say no. The smart thing, the safe thing, would be to finish her coffee, wish him well, and get on her plane to San Diego on Sunday with her heart intact. But she had spent 12 years being smart and safe when it came to relationships, and where had that gotten her? Alone, still comparing every man to a memory, still wondering what if. "I leave Sunday afternoon," she said slowly. "That gives us 2 more days. Then let me have those 2 days." Lucas's eyes were intense. "Let me show you who I am now, and we will figure out the rest from there." Against her better judgment, against every self-protective instinct she had developed, Zachary nodded. "Okay, 2 days." Lucas's smile could have lit up the entire coffee shop. "What are you doing right now?" "I told Emma I would be gone most of the day, so nothing until dinner tonight." "Come with me. I want to show you something." They took his car, a sleek electric sedan that would have been pretentious on anyone else, but somehow suited Lucas perfectly. He drove them out of town, taking winding back roads into the hills, and Zachary found herself relaxing despite her nerves. They fell into conversation easily, filling in more details of the missing years, trading stories that ranged from funny to poignant to absurd. Lucas told her about the time he accidentally wore mismatched shoes to a pitch meeting with a major potential client, and only noticed halfway through his presentation. Zachary described the research expedition, where she had accidentally fallen off the boat and ended up swimming with a pod of dolphins. They talked about books they had read, movies they had loved, the ways the world had changed since they were kids in college together. After 45 minutes, Lucas pulled off onto a dirt road that led up a steep hill. At the top, he parked and gestured for Zachary to follow him. They hiked a short trail through native grasses and wildflowers until they emerged at a clearing that overlooked the entire valley. "This is my land," Lucas said. "All 200 acres of it. I bought it 3 years ago." Zachary turned in a slow circle, taking in the view. Rolling hills covered in oak trees, a creek visible in the distance, the valley spreading out below them like a painting. "It is beautiful." "What are you going to do with it?" "That is the question I keep asking myself." Lucas pointed to various spots as he talked. "I want to build a house here on the ridge, something sustainable and efficient. Down by the creek, I am thinking about a small facility for developing and testing new packaging materials. Keep the rest wild, maybe do some habitat restoration for native species. You have given this a lot of thought." "I come up here whenever I need to think. Sometimes I camp overnight just to get away from everything." He looked at her, vulnerability clear in his expression. "I have never brought anyone else here before. This is my private place." Zachary felt the weight of that admission. "Why show me?" "Because when I imagine the future I want, the house I want to build, the life I want to live, you are in it." Lucas took a step closer. "I know that is crazy. I know we just reconnected yesterday, and I have no right to say any of this. But standing here with you now, I keep thinking that this is what I have been waiting for. Not just the right time or the right circumstances, but the right person to share it all with. Lucas, I live in San Diego. My work is there my whole life. I know, and I am not asking you to change that." San Diego is only a 2-hour flight. My company has clients all over California. I could easily justify opening an office there." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "I am getting ahead of myself. I am sorry. 2 days, we said. I should not be planning our future when we are still figuring out our present." But his words had kindled something warm and terrifying in Zachary's chest. She thought about her apartment in San Diego, which she had carefully decorated and kept meticulously clean, because she spent so much time there alone. She thought about the dates she had been on, the relationships she had tried to build with men who were perfectly nice, but never quite right. She thought about the part of her heart that had stayed 22 years old. Frozen in the moment, Lucas had kissed her goodbye and promised to write. "Show me more," she said. "Show me what you have planned, where you would build everything." They spent the next 2 hours walking the property, Lucas pointing out his vision for different areas, while Zachary offered suggestions based on her knowledge of ecosystems and conservation. He wanted to install solar panels, collect rainwater, design the house to work with the natural landscape rather than against it. She found herself getting excited despite her reservations, imagining native plant gardens that would attract pollinators, a pond that could support local wildlife. It felt dangerously like imagining a future together, and Zachary made herself pull back before she got too caught up in the fantasy. They had lunch at a small Mexican restaurant in town, sitting on the patio and sharing carnitas tacos while the afternoon sun beat down. Lucas told her about the challenges of running a business, the satisfaction of creating jobs in a community that had been economically depressed, the pressure of constantly needing to innovate to stay ahead of competitors. "You like it?" Zachary asked. "Being a CEO, running everything?" Lucas considered the question carefully. "Honestly, it is not what I imagined for myself back in college, but yes, I like it. I like knowing that the packaging we produce helps other companies be more sustainable. I like that we are profitable enough to invest in research for even better materials. I like employing 200 people who depend on me to make smart decisions." He smiled. "Though I would not mind a clone to handle the boring parts like budget meetings and HR reviews. That does sound tedious. What about you? Do you love what you do?" "Most of the time," Zachary admitted. "The research is incredible, the chance to make a real difference. But the funding is always precarious. The academic politics can be exhausting, and sometimes I feel like I am screaming into the void about climate change while the world burns around us." "Sounds like we are both in jobs that matter but take everything we have to give." "Pretty much." Zachary finished her last taco. "Though at least I occasionally get to dive in tropical waters, so that is a perk. I am incredibly jealous. The closest I get to exciting is quarterly reviews in conference rooms with bad lighting." They were laughing when Zachary's phone buzzed with a text from Emma asking how coffee had gone. Zachary glanced at the time and realized she had been with Lucas for nearly 6 hours. "I should get back," she said reluctantly. "Emma will send a search party soon." Lucas drove her back to her hotel, and the conversation never lagged. They discovered shared opinions on movies, argued good-naturedly about the best pizza toppings, and compared notes on places they wanted to travel. By the time he pulled into the parking lot, Zachary felt like she had reclaimed something precious she had thought was lost forever. "Tomorrow," Lucas said, "let me take you to dinner, somewhere nice." "Is this a date?" Zachary asked, raising an eyebrow. "You want it to be. She should say no. She should maintain some distance, protect herself from getting hurt again." But sitting here in the fading afternoon light, looking at Lucas's hopeful expression, she found she did not want to be careful anymore. "Yes," she said simply. "I want it to be a date." His smile was incandescent. "I will pick you up at 7. Zachary floated through the rest of the evening in a daze, barely able to focus on the bridesmaid dinner that Jennifer had organized. Emma kept shooting her knowing looks across the table, and Zachary knew she would face an interrogation as soon as they were alone. But for once, she did not mind. She felt like she was waking up from a long sleep, like colors were brighter and sounds were sharper and everything mattered more. That night, lying in bed while Emma peppered her with questions, Zachary found herself talking about Lucas in a way she had not allowed herself to in years. She explained about his father's stroke, about the sacrifices he had made, about the land and his plans for the future. Emma listened carefully, her expression thoughtful. "So what are you going to do?" Emma finally asked. "I have no idea," Zachary admitted. "This time yesterday I would have said there was no chance for us, but now I keep thinking about what he said about starting fresh and seeing where it goes." "You are falling for him again." "I do not think I ever completely fell out of love with him," Zachary said quietly. "I just learned to live with the hurt and pretended I had moved on." "Then stop pretending," Emma said firmly. "Life is too short to walk away from something that could be amazing just because you are scared of getting hurt. When did you become so wise? I have always been this wise. You are just finally ready to listen." Emma turned off her bedside lamp. "Wear the blue dress tomorrow. It makes you look incredible." Zachary did wear the blue dress, a wrap style in midnight silk that hugged her curves and made her eyes look impossibly bright. She spent an embarrassing amount of time on her hair and makeup, second-guessing every choice until Emma physically removed the mascara from her hand and told her she looked perfect. Lucas arrived at 7 exactly, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Zachary's monthly rent, and the look on his face when he saw her made every minute of preparation worth it. "You are stunning," he said, his voice rough. "You clean up pretty well yourself." He took her to a restaurant perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean, the kind of place that required reservations weeks in advance. Somehow, Lucas had secured them a private table on the terrace, where they could watch the sun set over the Pacific while waves crashed against the rocks far below. "How did you manage this?" Zachary asked as they were seated. "The owner's daughter works for my company. I called in a favor." Lucas grinned. "I wanted tonight to be special." It was special. The food was exceptional, each course perfectly prepared and beautifully presented. But more than that, the conversation flowed like wine, easy and intoxicating. They had moved past the catching-up phase into something deeper, talking about their hopes and fears, their regrets and dreams, the people they had become in the years apart. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if things had been different?" Zachary asked as they shared a dessert of dark chocolate mousse. "If your father had not gotten sick, if you had moved to Seattle like you planned?" "All the time," Lucas said honestly. "For years, I tortured myself with it. Imagined you flying up to visit on weekends, me coming down to San Diego when I could. Maybe we would have made it work, stayed together. Or maybe the distance would have killed it anyway," Zachary pointed out. "Maybe we would have had a few painful years of growing apart before ending it anyway. Maybe." He set down his spoon, his expression serious. "But I do not think so. I think we would have fought for it, made sacrifices, figured it out. Because what we had was real, Zachary. It was not just a college fling or youthful infatuation. I loved you more than I have ever loved anyone, and that does not just disappear." "What are we doing here, Lucas?" The question had been building all day, demanding to be asked. "What happens when I go back to San Diego tomorrow? Do we try the long-distance thing we never got to do 12 years ago? Do we make promises we might not be able to keep?" "I do not know," Lucas said, "but I know I do not want to lose you again. These 2 days with you have reminded me what it feels like to be truly happy, and I am not ready to give that up." "I am scared," Zachary admitted. I am scared of getting hurt again, scared of changing my whole life for something that might not work out, scared that we are chasing a memory instead of building something real. Lucas reached across the table and took her hand, his touch sending electricity up her arm. I am scared too. But I am more scared of spending the rest of my life wondering what if. Zachary, I am not asking you to change your life or make any big decisions tonight. I am just asking you to give us a chance. Let me come visit you in San Diego. Let me call you every day. Let us see if this thing between us is as real as it feels. Zachary looked at their joined hands, then up at his face, seeing hope and fear and love all mixed together in his expression. She thought about the last 12 years, the relationships that had never quite worked, the feeling that something was always missing. She thought about how alive she had felt these past 2 days, how much she had laughed, how easy it was to be with Lucas. Okay, she said, squeezing his hand. Let us try. But Lucas, if we are doing this, we do it right. No disappearing, no going silent when things get hard. We talk, we figure things out together, we are honest even when it is difficult. I promise, he said solemnly. No more running away. Whatever happens, we face it together. They left the restaurant as the last light faded from the sky, and Lucas drove them to a nearby beach. They walked along the sand in the darkness, listening to the waves and talking about logistics. Lucas would come to San Diego the following weekend. Zachary would look at her schedule and figure out when she could visit him. They would video call every evening when time zones allowed, text throughout the day, stay connected in all the ways modern technology made possible. This feels insane, Zachary said, laughing as the ocean spray misted her face. 2 days ago I had no idea you would be at that wedding, and now we are planning a long-distance relationship. When you know, Lucas said simply. He stopped walking and turned to face her, the moonlight turning his features silver. Zachary, I have spent 12 years regretting that I let you go. I am not making that mistake again. What if it does not work out? What if the distance is too much, or we have grown too far apart? Then at least we will have tried, at least we will know. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gentle on her cheekbones. But I do not think that is going to happen. I think we are going to figure this out because we are supposed to be together. I have known that since I was 22 years old, and nothing in the last 12 years has changed my mind. Zachary felt tears prick her eyes. I am still angry at you, for leaving, for not trusting me enough to let me help. I know, you have every right to be. But I also understand why you did it, and I think maybe I can forgive you, eventually. That is all I can ask for. They stood there on the dark beach with the ocean singing behind them, and when Lucas finally kissed her, it felt like coming home. His lips were soft and familiar and new all at once, and Zachary wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back with 12 years of longing and loss and hope. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he whispered. I never stopped, and I never will. I love you too, Zachary said, and felt the truth of it settle into her bones. Even when I was trying not to, even when I was angry, I still loved you. They drove back to her hotel far too late, stealing kisses at red lights and holding hands across the center console. Emma was already asleep when Zachary crept into their room, and she was grateful not to have to explain yet why she was grinning like an idiot while simultaneously feeling like her heart might burst from her chest. She lay awake for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened, everything that might happen. Her flight left at 3 the next afternoon, giving her just a few hours to see Lucas before she left. It would not be enough time, but then again, no amount of time would be enough when you were falling in love. Lucas picked her up at 10, bringing coffee and pastries from the grindhouse. They drove back up to his property, spreading a blanket in the meadow and lying in the grass while he pointed out his plans for the buildings one more time. "When will you start construction?" Zachary asked, her head pillowed on his shoulder. "Next spring, probably. The permits take forever, and I want to get the designs perfect." He played with her fingers absently. "You will help me, right? Make sure I do not accidentally destroy some crucial ecosystem." "I expect regular consultation fees," she teased. "I will pay you in home-cooked meals when you visit." "Deal." They stayed there until early afternoon, reluctant to move, reluctant to start the goodbyes that would have to come. Finally, though, Zachary's alarm went off, reminding her she needed to get to the airport. The drive back was quiet, both of them lost in their own thoughts. When Lucas pulled up to the hotel to help her collect her bags, Zachary felt panic rising in her throat. This was too fast, too much, too scary. What if they were making a huge mistake? What if long distance destroyed them the way it destroyed most couples? "Hey." Lucas tilted her chin up, reading her expression. "We are going to be okay. I am going to see you in a week. 7 days. We can do 7 days." 7 days, Zachary repeated, trying to convince herself. He kissed her once more in the hotel parking lot, sweet and gentle and full of promise. "I love you. I will text you when you land and we will talk tonight, okay?" "Okay." Zachary forced herself to step back, to grab her suitcase, to walk toward Emma's car where her friend was waiting to drive her to the airport. She turned back once to see Lucas standing by his car, watching her with an expression that made her chest ache. She waved. He waved back. And then Emma was pulling out of the parking lot and Lucas was disappearing from view. "So," Emma said carefully, "you want to talk about it?" "Not yet," Zachary said. "Ask me again when I am not on the verge of crying." But by the time they reached the airport, Zachary had pulled herself together enough to give Emma an abbreviated version of the past 2 days. Her friend listened carefully, nodding in all the right places. "You are doing the right thing," Emma said as she helped unload Zachary's bags. "This is a second chance, and those do not come around often. Do not waste it being scared. When did everyone become so wise about my love life? We have always been wise. You just usually ignore us." Emma hugged her tightly. "Go home, do your work, and get ready for your man to come sweep you off your feet next weekend. He is not my man yet. Give it time." The flight back to San Diego felt longer than usual, every minute dragging. Zachary tried to read, tried to watch a movie, tried to work on a research paper that needed editing. Nothing held her attention. She kept thinking about Lucas, about the way he looked at her, about the impossible situation they were attempting. Her phone lit up with a text the moment she turned it back on after landing. "I miss you already. Is that pathetic?" Zachary smiled as she typed back. "If it is, then we are both pathetic. I miss you too." They talked on the phone that night for 3 hours about nothing and everything. It became their routine. Every evening at 8, Lucas would call, and they would talk until one or both of them could barely keep their eyes open. They sent texts throughout the day, sharing photos and jokes and random thoughts. Lucas started sending her sunrise pictures from his morning runs. Zachary sent him shots from the lab and the ocean. By the time Friday rolled around, Zachary was vibrating with anticipation. Lucas's flight landed at 6, and she had cleaned her apartment 3 times and changed outfits twice by the time she needed to leave for the airport. She saw him come through the arrival's gate, and her heart did that stupid fluttering thing that she was starting to associate with just thinking about him. He spotted her, and his face lit up in a way that made the entire week of waiting worthwhile. "Hi," he said when he reached her, dropping his bag to pull her into his arms. "Hi yourself." Zachary breathed in the scent of him, coffee and cedar and something uniquely Lucas. He kissed her right there in the airport, and Zachary stopped caring that people were watching. She had spent 12 years living carefully, protecting herself, holding back. She was done with all of that. The weekend was perfect in the way that new relationships were perfect, when everything was exciting and the awkwardness added to the charm rather than detracting from it. Zachary showed Lucas her favorite spots in San Diego, took him to the lab and introduced him to her colleagues, brought him on a boat trip to observe some of her research sites. He was genuinely interested in her work, asking intelligent questions and offering suggestions that showed he had been paying attention to everything she told him. They ate fish tacos at a spot overlooking the harbor, walked along the beach at sunset, stayed up late talking about everything and nothing. Lucas fit into her life so easily it was almost frightening, like he had always been meant to be there. Sunday morning came too quickly. They had brunch at Zachary's favorite cafe, then she drove him to the airport, neither of them wanting to acknowledge that he had to leave. 2 weeks, Lucas said as they stood at the security checkpoint. You are coming to visit me in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Zachary confirmed. She had already requested the time off, already bought her plane tickets. I hate this, Lucas said suddenly, pulling her close. I hate having to leave you. I hate that we are in different cities. I hate that I cannot just take you home with me right now. I know. I hate it too. Zachary pressed her face into his chest. But we are making it work. We are doing what we did not get to do 12 years ago. I want more than this, though. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to cook you breakfast and argue about the thermostat and plan our weekends together. Someday, Zachary promised, even though the logistics seemed impossible. We will figure it out. The pattern continued through the fall. One of them would fly to visit the other every 2 weeks, stealing precious days together between work commitments. Zachary met Lucas's mother, who cried and hugged her, and told her she was the one Lucas had never stopped talking about. Lucas came to a symposium where Zachary was presenting her research, sitting in the front row and asking the most insightful question during the Q&A session. They had their first real fight in October, a stupid argument about scheduling that escalated because they were both tired and frustrated with the distance. Zachary ended up hanging up on him, then immediately regretting it. Lucas called back 5 minutes later, and they talked it through, apologizing and compromising and remembering their promise to face difficulties together. By November, they had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. The distance was still hard, but it no longer felt impossible. They had learned each other's schedules, figured out how to communicate across their busy lives, carved out time that was sacred to their relationship. Zachary flew up for Thanksgiving, meeting Marcus and Jennifer and a whole group of Lucas's friends from college and business. She felt embraced by his life, included in a way that made her start to believe this might actually work long term. It was during that visit that Lucas took her back up to his property, which now had stakes in the ground marking where construction would begin in the spring. I have been thinking, he said as they stood looking at the view, about what comes next for us. Zachary's heart started pounding. What do you mean, this is working? The long distance, the visits, all of it, but I do not want to do this forever. Lucas turned to face her, taking both her hands. I want you here with me, or me there with you, or both of us somewhere new together. I want a life that is not lived in 2-week increments. I cannot just leave my job, Zachary said carefully. The research I am doing is important. I know. And I am not asking you to give it up. Lucas squeezed her hands. But San Diego has a port, right? My company could easily justify opening an office there. I could split my time, be there half the month and here half the month to start. Eventually, maybe I could relocate the headquarters entirely, or we could find some other solution. I just need to know that we are working toward being together, not just maintaining the status quo. Zachary felt tears prick her eyes. "You would move your whole company for me." "I would do a lot more than that for you." He cupped her face. "I love you, Zachary. I want to marry you, build a life with you, have kids with you if you want them. I want everything, and I am willing to figure out whatever logistics necessary to make that happen." "That sounds like a proposal without actually being a proposal," Zachary said, laughing through her tears. "That is because the actual proposal is going to be much more romantic, with a ring and better planning and probably me being significantly more nervous." Lucas smiled. "But I wanted you to know where my head is at. Wanted to make sure we are on the same page about the future." "We are," Zachary said. "We are definitely on the same page." They started making plans that weekend, real concrete plans about how to merge their lives. Lucas would open a San Diego office after the new year, start spending 3 weeks a month there while keeping 1 week back at headquarters. Zachary would come up when she could, especially during the construction phase of his house. They would take it slow, figure things out step by step, but they would be working toward a shared future instead of just maintaining a long-distance present. Christmas came, and Zachary spent it with Lucas and his mother in Arizona. They exchanged gifts under the desert sun, and Lucas gave her a necklace with a small silver dolphin pendant that made her cry, because he had remembered her story about swimming with the pod. She gave him a first edition of the environmental science textbook they had used in the class where they first met, which she had tracked down through months of searching. New Year's Eve found them back in San Diego, watching fireworks over the bay from Zachary's apartment balcony. As midnight approached, Lucas pulled her close. "This is our year," he said. "The year we stop being long distance. The year we start building the life we want." "I will drink to that," Zachary said, raising her champagne glass. They kissed as the fireworks exploded overhead, and Zachary felt a sense of rightness settle over her. This was what she had been waiting for all these years. Not just love, but the right love. Not just a relationship, but a partnership built on honesty and trust, and the willingness to fight for each other. Lucas opened the San Diego office in February, a small space that would allow him to manage the West Coast clients more effectively. He rented an apartment 10 minutes from Zachary's, and suddenly they could see each other whenever they wanted. They fell into domestic routines, cooking dinner together and grocery shopping and arguing about whose turn it was to do the dishes. It was not always perfect. They had disagreements about money and time management and whose family to visit for which holiday. But they kept their promise to talk through everything, to never go silent when things got hard. They learned each other's boundaries and triggers, figured out how to give each other space while still maintaining connection. In May, Lucas took Zachary back up to his property, where construction had begun on the house. The foundation was poured, the framing was going up, and it was starting to look real instead of just a dream. "I have a question to ask you," Lucas said as they walked through what would eventually be the living room. "About the house. What about it? Whose house is this?" He gestured around them. "Mine or ours?" Zachary felt her breath catch. "Lucas." "Because I keep telling the architect that it is our house, and he keeps asking if he should be consulting with you about design decisions, and I keep saying yes, but I have not actually asked you if you want this to be ours." Lucas looked nervous now, a little uncertain. "So I am asking. Do you want to build this life with me? Not just visit it on weekends, but actually live it. Make decisions about where the kitchen island goes and what color to paint the bedroom and whether we need that extra office space." "Yes," Zachary said, no hesitation. "Yes, I want all of that. Really." His face lit up. "Because I do not want you to feel pressured. If you need more time, if you want to keep your own place for a while longer, I understand." "I am ready," Zachary said firmly. I am ready to stop maintaining two separate lives and start building one together." Lucas kissed her then, joy and relief evident in the way he held her. When they broke apart, he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "This is not the proposal," he said quickly. "The proposal is going to be better, I promise, but I wanted you to see the ring, make sure you like it. I had it made specially, and if it is not right, we can change it." Zachary opened the box with shaking hands. Inside was a stunning ring, a sapphire the color of the deep ocean surrounded by small diamonds. It was unique and beautiful and so perfectly suited to her that she could not imagine anything better. "It is perfect," she whispered. "Good. Because the proposal is happening next month at Marcus and Jennifer's anniversary party, and I need you to act surprised even though I just ruined it." Zachary laughed, closing the box and handing it back to him. "I will be the most surprised person there." "I love you," Lucas said, tucking the box back into his pocket. "Thank you for giving me a second chance. Thank you for not giving up on us. I love you too, always have, always will." The proposal, when it came, was everything Lucas had promised. Marcus and Jennifer's anniversary party was at the same vineyard where they had gotten married, where Zachary and Lucas had found each other again. Lucas got down on one knee during the sunset hour, in front of all their friends and family, and asked Zachary to marry him with the valley spread out behind them. She said yes through happy tears, and everyone cheered, and Emma loudly claimed credit for dragging Zachary to the wedding in the first place. They danced late into the night, celebrating not just Marcus and Jennifer's anniversary but their own new beginning. They got married the following spring, a small ceremony on Lucas's property with the house completed behind them. Zachary walked down an aisle lined with wildflowers while the sun set over the hills, and Lucas cried when he saw her. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising honesty and partnership, and forever. Zachary took a position at a nearby university that would allow her to continue her research while being based closer to their new home. Lucas promoted his second-in-command to run the San Diego office, allowing him to work primarily from the new facility he had built on the property. They settled into married life with remarkable ease, as if all those years apart had just been preparation for being together now. 2 years later, Zachary stood in the nursery they had built in the east wing of the house, painting the walls a soft green while her pregnant belly got in the way of everything. Lucas came in with lemonade and a worried expression. "Should you be on a ladder?" he asked. "I am on the bottom rung." "I am fine." But she let him help her down anyway, accepting the cold glass gratefully. "We need to pick a name soon. She will be here in 2 months. "I know, I have been thinking about that." Lucas wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands resting on her belly. "What about Emmeline?" "We could call her Emma after your best friend." "Emma would cry," Zachary said, leaning back against him. "Which means yes, I love it. Emmeline Wellington Zimmerman. It has a nice ring to it." They stood there in the nursery, surrounded by the life they had built together, and Zachary felt overwhelmingly grateful. Grateful that Marcus had gotten married, that she had agreed to be a bridesmaid, that she had been nervous enough to drop that champagne glass. Grateful for every moment that had led them here, even the painful ones, because they had all been necessary to create this perfect present. "I love you," she said, turning in his arms. "I love you too." Lucas kissed her forehead. "Thank you for seeing me at that wedding. Thank you for giving me a chance to explain. Thank you for choosing us. Always us," Zachary said. "From now until forever." Emmeline was born on a warm June evening, weighing 7 pounds and 3 ounces, with her father's gray eyes and her mother's determined expression. Emma cried when they told her the baby's name, just as predicted, and immediately appointed herself the favorite aunt. They brought Emmeline home to the house on the hill, where Lucas had installed solar panels and Zachary had planted native gardens, and they had built a life that honored both of their dreams. They raised their daughter surrounded by nature, teaching her to love the land and the ocean, to work hard and care deeply, to never give up on the people she loved. On their 5th anniversary, Zachary and Lucas stood on the terrace watching the sunset while Emmeline played in the grass with Emma's new puppy. Marcus and Jennifer were coming for dinner, bringing their own toddler son. Life was full and messy and perfect. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we had not reconnected at the wedding?" Lucas asked, pulling Zachary close. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but then I stop because I cannot imagine any other life than this one." "Me neither." He kissed the top of her head. "Best reunion of my life." "Mine too." They watched their daughter laugh in the fading light, surrounded by friends and family and the future they had built together. 12 years had separated them, but forever would keep them together, and that made all the difference.